Hello, dear ones. Today I want to introduce you to a topic that you probably didn't expect, because at first glance, you certainly wouldn't associate it with depression. Namely, today I want to suggest a collection of golden life wisdoms that don't come from me, but are a very old tradition. And basically the key to Rhenish cheerfulness, namely the Cologne Basic Law. A warm welcome to Soul Tapping. Today it's about the Cologne Basic Law. If you're not from Cologne or the Cologne area, then it might be that you've never heard of it. And that's why I want to introduce it to you today. It always sounds a bit like it's something funny from the carnival, something you only hear drunkenly in a pub. It's printed on breakfast boards and things like that. Everything is a bit of a part of Cologne's life culture. But if you take a closer look, they are incredibly profound life wisdoms that, when taken together, really form the key to a happy life. I've been a resident of Cologne by choice for, I don't know, over 25 years. And I live here because I feel completely comfortable, because the people, I really feel, are happier here than elsewhere in Germany. They are open, they are warm-hearted, they are somehow cool. And this, Cologne Basic Law, it's a collection of 11 different rules, basically. If you stick to them and if you understand what's behind them, then you really can't help but become a happy, open-minded person. And I want to introduce them to you today. There are a total of 11 paragraphs. So not 10 golden rules, but in Cologne, it's always 11, the Jack number. That's always the number for the carnival goers on November 11th. At 11:11 a.m., the carnival season always begins here. And that's why this time there are 11 and not 10 rules. Okay. The first paragraph is called It is what it is. So, it is what it is, translates to facing the facts. That really reminds me of this poem by Erich Fried. If you have seen the video about these 3 keys to healing, I talk to you about the 3rd key, which is love. A poem read by Erich Fried called It Is What It Is. That's always what love says, even when you're stressed about many other things. And this is bad, and you judge that is bad. And that is bad, love always says to that, it is what it is. And within that lies, essentially, the theme of acceptance. So, when I think again about my golden rules for overcoming depression, my first golden rule was acceptance. It was when I was looking through this Cologne Basic Law that I first noticed that it's essentially about that. Or there's also a saying from the Dalai Lama that has helped me many times in my life. And it goes, things are as they are, and not as we would like them to be. Understanding and accepting this is the key to happiness. So the first life rule of the cheerful people of Cologne is, it is as it is. The second paragraph is, it good as it good. That means, it comes as it comes. So don't be afraid of the future. That means, essentially, Eckhart Tolle is already in there. Be in the here and now. Don't constantly worry about the future. Most fear fantasies never actually happen in life anyway. Therefore, make sure to be in the here and now. And don't let your thoughts constantly wander to some feared future scenarios that are not even relevant yet. But when it actually happens, that's the time to worry about it. But not now. So, it could be it comes one way or another. Go with the flow of life. Ride the wave instead of letting it knock you down. The third paragraph is called It has always turned out well. This contains the optimistic attitude that you shouldn't worry, because things will somehow work out. Of course, that's not entirely true. Things haven't always gone well, and bad things have happened too. But this saying simply expresses that it's much healthier, much more pleasant, much more relaxing to have an optimistic attitude. So, these are basically the first 3 paragraphs, which actually say it all. It is what it is, it goes as it goes, and it will always be good. Paragraph 4 is called, What's Gone is Gone. So what's gone is gone. That means, don't lament over things. In the books by Eckhart Tolle, there's a part somewhere where he tells a story. I don't remember exactly what the story was, where someone had it engraved on a ring. Or something like that, the saying, this too shall pass. So, we should be clear that everything is in flux, and that the things that disappear, well, they just disappear, and that's just how it is. But something new comes in its place. So, what's gone is gone. That means, don't hold on to it. What is gone is just gone right now. So, that also means when changes come into your life. Not only when you lose something or, if you get robbed or something, but also, yes, when a relationship ends or when your time at a job comes to an end, then that's how it is. You shouldn't cry over spilled milk, and you shouldn't lament over things, but rather say, okay, that's just how it is now. And if something was stolen from me or went missing, then it just shouldn't be with me anymore, but with someone else. So, you don't have to see it as something terrible. What's gone is gone. And I think that also applies, a little bit, to the time we are currently living in. It's always about the old and new normal. And whether we want it or not, whether we like it or not, the old normal is over. And I believe, no matter how hard we try, it won't come back. At least not the way it was. And I think we all need to say goodbye to it. We need to stop trying to hold on to things. We need to be ready to let go. What's gone is gone. So the time as we knew it, as it always was until before Corona, it won't come back like that. And that's not a bad thing, because we're just in a transition phase now, and something new will come. And something much more beautiful, because we all now feel the necessity that the old system, so to speak, is over, it has stepped down, and it's time to replace it with something new. But the time in between is so uncomfortable, and the exact same thing applies to anyone who is currently stuck in a depression. You are not at the end, but you are in a transition period. That means, don't try to overcome the depression, to regain your old life, so that everything goes back to how it was before. It won't be like that, and that's a good thing. Because that's not what life is about or what it's about. In depression, it's about going through this transformation period. You go through it alone, and we go through it together. Both. And all these things are already embedded in this Cologne Basic Law. And I think it's magnificent. So, what was number 4? Number 5 is, nothing stayed the same. So, nothing stays the same. That's basically the same thing. Here we are again with Eckhart Tolle. Nothing stays as it was. Life is a river. Everything changes. Always. Life is change, and therefore be open to innovations. For example, be open to us establishing a new system here now. That we create a new school system. That we create a new economic system. That we somehow deal with the environment and all these topics. We need new systems, and we must have the courage to let doors close, because we can trust that other new doors will open again. But they will only open if we have the courage to close the old ones. That's the point. And, especially now, during this time of transformation, we all need this. We need it in depression and in collective depression. So, I keep seeing this parallel, and I believe we all have to somehow do our part to bring this collective crisis to an end. And that won't happen through decisions made by politicians. Certainly not. Instead, we will come out of this crisis constructively together by each starting with themselves. And those who are currently in a personal crisis are especially called upon to do so. To start with themselves. So, nothing stayed as it was. It won't stay the same anyway. Let go. And embrace the changes that are coming, take them as they are. Then, interestingly, there's a bit of a softening in paragraph 6. We don't know it, we don't need it, away with it. So we don't know it, we don't need it, get rid of it. I think this means, for me, that you are allowed to remain critical. That you don't have to accept every change as it is or as it is offered to you. Take things in the flow of life as they come, but you can also look at them on a silver platter and consider, do I want this or do I not? And if too much new stuff comes along, then you can also say, now I'm going to stay true to my values. You also need a stable foundation. You can't just give everything up to renewal, then you'll be adrift, and won't even know where you are or who you are. Yes, well, we don't need that, away with it. Too much new stuff isn't good either. I'm going to stick a bit to my values now. I'm going to remain critical of what is being imposed on me here. And I believe you can also relate that to our collective situation. So, all the changes that are constantly imposed on us from above. And now you have to follow this rule, now you have to follow that rule, now this rule is exactly right. You can also say, no, we don't need that, away with it. Then, paragraph 7, what do you want to do? Submit to your fate. That means, again, this theme of acceptance is present, and again the Dalai Lama. What do you want to do? So, sometimes you just can't change things. Sometimes they are just the way they are. And you can't always control everything. So suppose you somehow leave the house and it's raining. Well, then it's just raining. What do you want to do? You can't always change it, or you're stuck in traffic. Yeah, damn, you're stuck in traffic. But you can't change it right now. And that's kind of like, submit to what's coming. What do you want to do? Yeah, you can't right now. It's not a big deal. Make something out of it. And if you're in depression, then you're in depression right now. That's exactly the point. And if we're now together in a stupid crisis, then that's just how it is. Roll up your sleeves and get to work. So, start working on overcoming this crisis. Number 8. Do it well, but not too often. That means, don't overdo it. I think this is about proportionality. So have fun, enjoy your life, have a drink, and whatever else. But maybe also pay attention to your health, to your sleep. That's how I would interpret it. Of course, you can interpret anything into it. These are very general rules. But I believe it means to maintain proportionality, to always make sure to find a golden middle ground. And that applies to everything. That also applies to therapy and working on yourself. I've already made a video about this, that you can get a paradoxical therapy reaction if you do too much. You can also overdo it. So in that sense, yes, work on yourself, find a therapist and do that, but not too often. So not just that all the time. Try to find a balance, or work-life balance, for example. All these topics. It's always about the middle ground, that you might also withdraw during depression. Yes, but not too often. Get out and meet people. But not too often either. Always make sure you achieve a balance. For me, that's what this 8th paragraph is about. Do it well, but not too often. 9. This is the universal question, which is, what's the nonsense? For me, it's an appeal to common sense. You are allowed to question things. You don't have to accept everything I tell you here. You don't have to accept anything just like that. You can also simply say, "What's the nonsense?" For me, it also means listen to your heart. Listen to your heart, and not always just to other people. Even with things that other people expect from you or demands, or anything, you can imagine it on a silver platter and consider, do I want this or do I not? You can also say, "What's the nonsense?" And I think we are also allowed to do this with these sometimes completely insane Corona rules. So, you really have to ask yourself, where is the common sense in that? So, you can visit someone in pairs, but you can't as one. No, you can as one visit two. So, I can't keep track of the rules anymore either. And we are allowed to question this critically, yes. That has to do with common sense and not with somehow, I don't know, tinfoil hat, right-wing radical, or whatever labels they put on you when you just say, "What kind of crappy rules are these?" You are allowed to say that. And of course, this doesn't just apply to the Corona rules. This might also apply to what your therapist tells you or what the doctor tells you. A lot of people are totally obedient to authority, even towards doctors, because they might be in an anxiety disorder themselves at the moment and are afraid for their body, for their health. And then they believe everything the doctor says. That's not healthy either. You can just say, "What's the nonsense?" The 10th rule, now we're slowly getting to the Cologne Carnival, is called, "Drink with the others." So, follow the commandment of hospitality. That's what the rule translates to in German, the people of Cologne. They are really, totally open and tolerant towards peace. I think that's because Cologne is just such a multicultural city where there are really many people of peace. That means they have no choice but to be tolerant. To me, that means don't be so reserved and suspicious towards others. Just offer them your friendship. So invite them for a Kolsch, as they would say in Cologne. Overcome your prejudices and see the good in people. I've practiced this for myself several times and have had totally positive experiences with it. I'd like to tell you an example. Years ago, I had a doctor with a really rude receptionist, and I found her absolutely terrible. And back then, I was still in a mindset of, I'm the small one here and I shouldn't complain, and so on. And I always put up with her being so rude to me. Then I pondered back and forth, should I change doctors because of this? I could do that too. Then I thought, the doctor is actually good, it's just this receptionist who's so annoying. Then I thought, okay, I'll try something paradoxical and just imagine that she's a really nice woman. I'm now explicitly looking for the positive qualities of this woman. I'm looking for them and I'll just give her a compliment. And that's what I did. The next time I went there, it was a medical assistant. Then I first thought, oh, that's a nice picture on the wall, and I said, oh, that's a nice picture, and I talked to her about this nice picture and then just thought, I'll treat her like a really great, nice woman. And lo and behold, as you call into the forest. Call, so it echoes back. The woman was suddenly not against me, because I made the switch in my head. And for me, that's already part of it. In this church rule, you bring it with you. It means something like, hey, come on, let's have a drink together. Let's make friends. Let's bury our prejudices. And I believe if everyone in the world did that, we would have a different world. Then we would be one step closer to our goal. So, it's not just a Cologne Carnival pub story, but it's a life rule that you can apply to yourself. And yes, maybe you'll have a situation like that too. Like I did with the arch helper. Feel free to write in the comments if you know something like that. And finally, the 11th and most important rule of all from the Cologne Basic Law. You laugh yourself silly. You laugh yourself silly. Keep your sense of humor. I think that's a super important rule. the people of Cologne can do that. They somehow have. They have an ability to not take things too seriously. Maybe that still comes from World War II. Cologne was 90% destroyed back then, and they had to somehow use gallows humor out of necessity to rebuild the city and somehow manage to get back on their feet, to pick themselves up again, and they can do that. They somehow have this ability. And that is truly a very, very helpful golden rule of life. That you preserve your sense of humor, even if you're in a depression. It's completely understandable that you can't always laugh. And it's also clear that you don't find things as funny as you used to. Nevertheless, try to maintain a bit of distance from your problems, because then it becomes easier for you not to take them so seriously and not to feel so sorry for yourself, but really to manage to take a step back and to look at the whole thing a bit from the outside, and maybe even view it a little like the game of life. So that you occasionally imagine the whole thing, here it would just be a game, just a play. Could one say yes, and that you simply learn to laugh at yourself again, or preserve the system, if you still have it? This is a very important trait that the people of Cologne have preserved. And recently, I actually had an experience where I realized that I had already learned it. I would like to briefly tell you about it. I was invited to sing at a wedding, and the absolute nightmare happened to me. Every wedding singer's nightmare, namely, I was in the wrong church. I was wondering where the people were, why no one was coming. I was there in the church, warming up my voice, thinking, yes, they'll be here soon. And then it was exactly the time when the service was supposed to start. And no one was there. And I was alone, and at that moment, it just clicked. I am in the wrong church, so I had to go to the neighboring village. And I think, in the past, I would have died. In the past, I would have cried and screamed and raged. I would have sunk into the ground with shame. That would have been absolutely terrible for me. But at the moment I realized I was in the wrong church, I burst out laughing. I couldn't stop laughing the whole time. I hurriedly packed my things, drove over, then couldn't find the other church, and looked around there for a long time. And then I just barely made it in time, and it was somehow completely surreal because this service had to take place outside so that the entire wedding party could attend despite COVID. And it was totally stormy. It stormed and rained at the same time. And I had to stand there, having just rushed in, drenched in sweat, with my dress and hair flying everywhere. And then I had to sing my song into the microphone and couldn't even hear myself. And I couldn't stop laughing the whole time. And that's when I realized what cool experiences you have when you don't take things too seriously. Of course, as a professional musician who gets paid to perform and be on time for the service, I take it seriously. But that's just how it was. It is what it is. It could have been as it could have been, and it would have still turned out fine. And it did turn out fine. I then sang my song, and I don't know if the people enjoyed it, because with all the masks, unfortunately, you can't see that. It's a shame, but I think the others, maybe they found it funny too. I hope so. I definitely had a lot of fun, because I applied Article 11. You weren't broken by it. So, my dear ones, take it with humor, as best as you can. And if you want to Google this Cologne Basic Law, go ahead and print it out. I also printed it out and hung it on my practice door to always be reminded of these golden life rules. And now I wish you a wonderful day. Feel free to like my video, and you're also welcome to check out my online course again. It's finally finished now, if you want a collection of tapping rounds where you can tap along on all sorts of topics, just take a look at onlinekurs.seelenklopfen.de. So not www.onlinekurs, but onlinekurs instead of www. And of course, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I always appreciate comments, likes, support, and I wish you a wonderful day. See you then. Goodbye.